words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, God, Father of all. So I got a haircut this week thinking it would be a little cooler with all these robes on. I was sorely mistaken. Thanksgiving Day can be a loaded cultural icon, an indicator of our place in American culture. The turkey, the football games, the parades, the pumpkin pies, or pecan pies. An idyllic image of whole families coming together to feast over the bounty of the harvest year. Of boats and pilgrims and Native Americans all gathered together in peace and harmony. And isn't this all very lovely? Except it masks darker truths. Truths not talked about or hidden away. What if the harvest that is hoped for doesn't come? What if you are a parent who says Thanksgiving is at the homeless shelter this year? Or there will be no Thanksgiving dinner at all? Does this mean that parent is reaping what he or she has sown? That this family is getting what they deserve? Paul seems to imply this in verse 6 of the epistle reading from 2 Corinthians. The one who sows sparingly will also reap sparingly, and the one who reaps bountifully will also reap bountifully. But even so, Paul must be setting the stage to lead us in another direction, toward another way of understanding God's abundance, especially in times of need. Instead, could this passage be about us? The us who should and are able to give plentifully. A reminder to love God. And out of this love for God comes our love for our neighbors. A rendering of great generosity. As Paul says in today's reading, for the rendering of this ministry not only supplies the needs of the saints, but also overflows with many thanksgivings to God. Paul is taking his listeners on a journey of questioning. Where do we believe our bread, our seeds of life come from? What is the cost and the consequence of not giving? And how does what we offer to others matter to God? Let us begin to explore and reflect on what we have to give and why we give what we give. If this giving is coming from our hearts, if it is given to glorify God, then the natural outcome of this will be genuine love for others. The emotions that we will experience will feel right and good. And it is this sense of righteousness and goodness that will lead us and multiply our efforts. It will be that rendering. It will be a rendering that sustains us through each harvest year with thankful hearts. The gospel passage that I just read has Jesus on a journey to Jerusalem while passing through Galilee and Samaria. Along the way, Jesus encounters these 10 lepers. Lepers, they're social outcasts. They're cursed. They're unclean. They had to live outside the towns. And people could could not approach them and they could not approach people except from a far distance. So knowing that they can't approach Jesus, they start to shout at him, "Have mercy on us!" Somehow, these 10 lepers had heard about this guy who can miraculously heal people. And if this Jesus can heal others, then just maybe he can heal them. "Have mercy on us!" Jesus pauses, looks at the 10 lepers. He asks them no questions. He doesn't berate them for who they are or how their lives suddenly fell apart when they became ill from leprosy. "Have mercy on us!" Jesus simply tells them, "Go, show yourselves to the priests." Because for the lepers, only the priests at the temple can deem them clean and able to return to society. Only the priests can give them their life back, give them their families back. The lepers don't question Jesus. They probably looked at each other in awe, full of hope and fear. But they do as he says. They head toward the priests at the temple who can change their social status and provide them with entry back into the lives that they once knew. One, though, just one, stops in his tracks. Because he has just looked down at his hands and his feet, and he realizes that his whole body has been healed. That's when he turns around and he shouts praises to God as loudly as he can. He is stunned and grateful. This leper makes his way back as quickly as he can to Jesus, and he falls at Jesus' feet. "Thank you!" This is where Luke introduces Jesus' own stunned reaction. A Samaritan and a foreigner has recognized Jesus as the point of entry into God's kingdom. Luke is reminding us that Jesus came to bring salvation to everyone, Jew and Gentile, known and foreigner, Iraqi and American, black and white, gay and straight. There is no other in God's kingdom. How often is it a stranger or a guest who points out what we have stopped seeing? How often is it a stranger who helps us to remember why we even show up at church on Sunday mornings? Or a newcomer who hears with new ears, sees with new eyes, and turns back and says, "Thank you." How often is it a stranger who reminds us of what it is that we have to be thankful for? And isn't that the crux of why we come together once a year at Thanksgiving? To remember and be reminded of God's grace and God's bounty in our own lives. To remember to turn back and fall on our knees and say, "Thank you." Though it's easy to become like the other 9 lepers. They go and they do as Jesus says, and they are healed too. But do we, like them, follow Jesus' instructions solely from a sense of duty or compulsion or a desire to get what we want? Or is it because that we are able to look down at our hands and our feet and see something miraculous? see that we are and have always been the body, the hands, and the feet of Christ. And can we too fall on our knees before Christ and praise God for the bounty that we have received and that we just received at Christ's table? Amen.